everyone. We are here for a very integral discussion. We're talking Mandalorian Chapter 13, The Jedi. Spoiler alert up front. You really don't want to watch this right now until you've seen the episode. I mean, that should be a given for any time we're talking, but this one in particular, we're about to drop some stuff. So, if you have not seen the episode yet, hit pause, go watch it, come right back. If not, be prepared for some amazing discussion.
Okay, so I guess I should duck out because I haven't watched it yet.
Here's the spoilers. They've been dropped.
We've got some major spoilers with Grogu, but I am Rachel Radner, and joining me today, we've got the one, the only, Christian Bladt.
Hi, good to see everyone.
It's a unique name as far as I know.
As far as I know, too. And we've got that, Zach Wilson guy.
Not a unique name, as I know.
And to my left, we've got Hubby Joe.
Hi, everyone.
And that's his legal name, Hubby Joe.
Yeah, I think it's about time.
Yeah.
I mean, after it's like common law marriage, right? Like after you are called it for 10 years, it just becomes a legal thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Let's just talk about her because it's on all of our minds. We got Ahsoka Tano, and I mean, anyone who's been on Twitter knows this. I don't know about you guys, but we watched the show at midnight when it dropped. And then by 12:45, 12:05 is when spoilers started dropping. But by 12:45 that night, everyone was talking about it. Christian, when did you watch? Was it right at midnight?
No, because it was Thanksgiving night, and we were at my in-laws' place down in Orange County. The kids were staying there, my wife's sister, and it was just like I was exhausted. Even if it had been on at 9, I don't think I would have watched it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to hopefully find time to watch it somewhere over the weekend. And then by Friday, late morning, anytime I looked at anything on my phone, I was like, because I knew she was in it. And obviously we've all known that Rosario Dawson was going to play her. So that stuff didn't get spoiled for me, but I felt really confident other things would have. So, and I think if I'd let it go a little longer, the name definitely would have gotten spoiled for me. So I basically was just like, the kids went down for a nap, and I'm like, look, even if they wake up, I'm going to keep watching this. So I watched it at like noon on Friday. So like I lived in a 12-hour bubble where I didn't have it spoiled, but only because I knew a little bit.
Yeah.
I knew, like I said, I knew she was in it. I knew it was Rosario Dawson. So
I'm curious how you guys feel about like spoil, because like I know, Rachel, you and I were both on Twitter at like 1 a.m. But how do you guys feel about like the Twitter spoiler debate? Like, is it your own fault if you're on Twitter after it drops, or is there a reasonable amount of time?
Here's my thought. I mean, you and me, Zach, we did the respectable thing at, early in the morning after we had both seen it. Literally, all you said was, and I responded, And so here's the thing. People like you and me, we're not going to be the ones dropping spoilers, at least not that big. Like, anyone who knows us is going to know something major happened, but not what exactly happened. But that being said, if you really
I was super crafty with mine. I went, and then I did a little cutoff because the rest of the word was a spoiler.
Yeah, well, I was not so crafty with my eye. It was more just, response to yours. But I mean, I feel like if you're going to go on Twitter we all knew that Ahsoka was going to be in this episode. Like 2 or 3 days before, there were articles out saying she was going to be there. Everyone kind of guessed it. It had all but been confirmed. So I feel like that was not going to be too much of a spoiler. I think everyone kind of knew. But if you're knowing that this is going to be a major episode, that we only have 8 in season 2, if you really didn't want things to be spoiled, if it were me, I would not have gone on social media, especially Twitter. You could probably get away with it on Facebook if you're not in certain groups. But Twitter, yeah, I would have just said, yeah, BRB Twitter. Like, I'm not, I'm not checking this.
I think that they're like people putting like pictures and thumbnails on YouTube that are spoilers. Like that feels a little because people are on YouTube for other things.
Yeah.
But social media, I'm like, if you're on Twitter, it's your own fault.
Yeah, I didn't put the thumbnail for this show until right before the show. I have a thumbnail of Rosario Dawson, and it is different. When a show airs, like if it's an HBO show and it's airing, you can feel pretty confident, like, okay, we're going to talk about it on Twitter because everybody in the whole country can see it. And then when it's a network show, you're like, oh, those stupid East Coast people trying to ruin it for those of us who are smart enough to live in the West Coast. And then, there's all these different rules. But like for me, when I've really not wanted something spoiled, like in various years when I haven't wanted a Doctor Who season finale spoiled, I just sign out of Twitter on my phone and I don't look at it because I know that it's going, and especially because, that airs in the UK so many hours before it does here, that I'm just like, I just can't, So if I was really worried about this, I definitely wouldn't have opened up Twitter.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get us off topic.
No, I think it's important to talk about.
I see this debate every time there's a major episode of TV lately. It's very interesting, different perspectives.
I mean, here's my thing. I don't think it's fair to get mad at someone who's posting spoilers. That's happened to me before, like not to get like too personal here, but someone legitimately got mad at me for not giving a spoiler, but just kind of saying something that was like a leading statement on Twitter that could have been seen as a spoiler. And it's like, okay, nah, like don't get mad at somebody. If you really don't want to see a spoiler, don't go on places where you might see them.
But to be fair, Rachel, that post was, boy, this episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. really fits FITZ into my heart, So I think we all knew what you were saying.
Wow.
Well, I couldn't help myself.
But see, that's the thing. I think it's fun to post stuff like that, and I think it is it's unfair to ask people to like wait to post their jokes.
I agree.
Because then it's wasted joke material.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
You can mute certain things too. So if you really don't want to, if you want to go on Twitter, but you don't want to see Mandalorian, just take care of it. You can there's ways.
I have stuff muted that I'm just like, I don't even want to think about that thing. That thing has a negative thought in my brain. Permanent mute.
It does not live rent free in my brain. But speaking about things that do live rent free, let's talk about Ahsoka and specifically how you guys viewed Rosario Dawson's portrayal of her. I have some thoughts. They were both negative and positive. So, Joe, let's start with you. What you have watched Clone Wars and Rebels with me.
Yes.
What do you think of seeing going from Ashley Eckstein, who did the voice of Ahsoka, to now we see Rosario and we're seeing a live action version? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I thought it was awesome. I didn't expect it like in the first minute of the show. But as soon as we saw it, I jumped off the sofa too. And it's like, oh my God, she's here. And it was really cool. I think she played it well. Costume's a little off.
The Lekus, they're too short. And I went back because I didn't know if I was just being too judgmental about this. And I went back and I literally pulled up Rebels. And I know, like, obviously in Clone Wars, like when she's younger, they're going to be shorter. But by the time we got to Rebels, it goes down. I literally kind of measured like her, like where it was around her waist, and they're just too short.
She lost like 8 inches of Leku.
Daniel Drew was in the chat before we even started talking about exactly this. I understand the practicality of her Leku lengths, but it still looks wrong in her 40s with teenage Leku lengths. But everything else was amazing. Yeah, I think that they probably visually just wanted to make sure that it was like, this is the way you remember the character. Let's do that. But I can understand that people have that. But I'm with Joe. I was just excited to see her, and I mean, she's great, Rosario Dawson, and I was excited about the choice ever since we've heard these weren't really very rumory rumors. It was fairly confirmed like before the season started that this was going to happen. And I haven't seen enough of the animated character where I have any criticism. I've seen enough Clone Wars with her, and I don't even know that I saw episodes of Rebels with her, because I saw the early seasons of Rebels. But I'm not up to date on it. But I did think it was a great representation of the character, and especially because, I mean, when you think about how young she is when Clone Wars started, it's kind of cool to see the adult badass version of her.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with you. Zach, what are some of your thoughts? And then I'll kind of get into what I'm thinking here too.
I think Rosario Dawson did a good job. It felt like the character. It didn't feel like it was like crazy off in some weird way. The Leku thing, the length doesn't bother me as much because I remember they were in the Gallery series. They were talking about how they approach things, that what they look like on the animated and then translating them to live action. And basically their thought process on it is the animation is a stylized version of the live action. That's true in most things that they've taken that have gone the other way. So that applies when you're going the opposite too, that they're like more toning down and making it more realistic when they bring it to live action. Okay, so it's shorter in this version. That's fine. The issue for me was that I'm glad they went with practicals, but they could have used some CGI enhancement because they looked really stiff.
Mm-hmm.
Like they looked like foam. They didn't feel fluid. And that applies also to her main fight. So like the character felt like Ahsoka. Like everything she did felt right. Obviously being handled by Dave Filoni.
Mm-hmm.
But then like I wish that they had just, and maybe it was a budgetary thing, I wish that they had just gone like another step further. Because like Ahsoka has like, we saw her do like one crazy flip in the episode, but then she didn't really do any in the big fight at the end. It was just very simple, and it felt like it could have been more.
Yeah,
but the character felt right, and that's the biggest thing to me.
I was very cautious about. Okay, so I loved seeing Ahsoka. I loved seeing Dave Filoni handle her. Like it felt like a natural progression. If anyone was going to bring her into live action, Filoni is the person to do it. So I was glad that he got to handle this. I liked the special effects. I think what was really like the neatest thing to me, and this kind of speaks more to the episode as a whole, I loved, like in general, Mandalorian feels very Kurosawa or like a 50s, 60s Western. I loved that, especially in the Jedi, we got a lot of that. It really felt like we were watching an old Japanese film. This made me think of Shogun Assassin, Lone Wolf and Cub, which, they're very like, these films have inspired not only George Lucas, but Dave Filoni as well. So it makes sense to me. But this episode in particular, this was a perfect episode to bring Ahsoka into, because we got to see some of her, what we are kind of used to from the animated series, both of them, Rebels and Clone Wars. We got to see some of that brought into action. And that was that was my favorite part of seeing her in live action, was that somehow, even though this was live action, the way, like the fluidity of her lightsabers and the way that she fought and the way that they filmed the scene and the colors they chose with how dark everything was compared to the white, the brightness of her sabers, it was very like, it made it feel very magical, and it just felt like every move they were using was very Ahsoka. The dialogue was Ahsoka. I personally, like when I said I had some negative things to say, I think that this is more of a subjective negative, but I was a little bit upset when we get to the scenes with Grogu and Ahsoka, where she's saying, "I can't train him. He like basically hinting that this, child reminds her of Anakin." And the problem I have with that is that if you go into Rebels, and I know that Dave Filoni understands her because Dave Filoni wrote all of this, so I can't say that he's mishandling the character. She's his character. He knows what he's doing, and there's probably a reason why she's acting like this. But in Rebels, even though she was a lot more bitter because of what had happened, and we got to see scenes with her and Vader, even though she's more bitter, and I could see her saying something like this, it hurt to hear her say it. And especially when she's only been in communication with Grogu for not even a hot minute. So to me, it was a very quick judgment to make, even though I can understand why she made it. I'm not sure that I don't know that I liked seeing it happen and play out this way in the episode.
I think that it makes sense for her reaction if you especially keep in mind that it's been 9 years since we last saw Ahsoka. Not including the Rebels epilogue.
That's what so yeah, Rebels. The only other thing I want to say is that when we see her, we don't know what has happened. We don't know what happened between the final time we saw her in the epilogue, and we don't know what's happened since the epilogue. So it could make sense. I'm sure Filoni knows what he's doing. It's just that it bothered me because I feel like
what I mean is like, so we saw her in that epilogue that was post original trilogy, but we didn't really get her talking about like her experiences over that time. Mm-hmm. So the last time we saw her thoughts on Anakin / Vader was the end of season 7. Mm-hmm. And I think it makes sense that Ahsoka having to watch, like, especially from we know a sideline amount because Luke is the one who's actually fighting Vader, seeing how much destruction Anakin has caused, and that we wouldn't even have seen her reaction to Alderaan until now. Because yes, we saw her after that, but she wasn't dealing with it in the moment. This is her first time dealing with okay, Anakin went so bad, not just fighting me bad and fighting Ezra bad, but blowing up a planet genocide bad.
Yeah.
And now she's that's whoa. And I assume she heard Anakin tell the story of the council, saying you're too attached to your mother. That makes you dangerous. And she wrote it off because he was her mentor. But now that everything that Vader did is in her memory, those two things together is she's literally repeating the words, saying, "You're too attached. I cannot train you." It's the same speech that Yoda gave.
Yeah, when Yoda first saw Anakin, that it felt very similar to me. My only problem is that even when we saw the Ahsoka Vader, when we saw them facing off right before Ezra pulled her through the world between worlds, I still think that even though she was fighting him, it almost felt like she still believed he was Anakin under there and that there was a way for him to come back. Now, that being said, we don't know what's happened since, and I could buy this. It feels like it could be characteristic. It just hurts to see it happen again, and I wish that that's not the direction they had taken, because we've gotten that not even from a characterization point of view. We've gotten that so many times with people saying, "I can't train you. There's too much evil in you."
That's what I was going to say. Is no one ever wants to train anyone. Luke doesn't want to train Rey. Qui-Gon really doesn't want to train Obi-Wan. I mean, it's just no, I'm good. Jedi don't want to train other Jedi, but obviously at this point in history, and you don't know what has happened for Ahsoka the last few years. There's not a lot of Jedi left. She's I'm really in no shape to do this. And also, God damn it, this Grogu is just too damn cute for work. How am I supposed to tell him, no, don't do that? Because even Mando has a problem with that. So no, but I think realistically, I think that it really is what we get. Always these Jedi, especially, look, we're just going to assume she's been alone for a lot of this time, just like Luke was alone for so much time when we finally, see him at the end of Force Awakens. And he's just no, I'm not training you, It's just too much bad has happened. You don't want to be the master who creates the next Darth Vader. You no one wants that on their conscience,
The one thing I'm surprised we didn't hear her say to this effect is the last time we saw her, she had disavowed the Jedi. "I am no Jedi" was I believe the quote.
It's literally the quote when she's it's That's the whole thing in Rebels, is that she is not a Jedi. Like, she stressed it. She stressed it to Vader when they were doing it. She told Ezra this. Like, she told everyone. So when this is called, Chapter 13, the Jedi, as Ahsoka, as far as I know, unless something has changed in the time that we haven't seen her, she does not consider herself to be a Jedi. In the book Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston, which is an amazing book, if you guys have not read it, you should definitely read it. There's a lot of, it takes place right after Order 66. And, to speak to Christian's point about Ahsoka being alone, she pretty much is alone. She spends a lot of time. She meets people from a couple different planets. But in the end, it's really a story of her realizing, especially, for the first half of the book, she knows she has to be alone, and she's struggling, and like, at this point she doesn't know about Darth Vader, because it's before we get into the Rebels territory, but she's struggling with the Force, and she actually closes off from the Force for a while, because she knows that that's what she has to do. And so to me, like, okay, if she now considers herself a Jedi, which we did not get confirmation that she herself believed that she was a Jedi again, but if she does, what happened in that time that we're not getting? And I really hope, we know there's going to be a spinoff. I'm really hoping that when we go into that territory, that they give us the Ahsoka backstory to kind of understand. And also,
wait, we know? Hold on, what did I miss?
Well, there's a Deadline article with Katie Sackhoff where she's talking about what, the spinoff, and I don't know that it's 100% confirmed, but it's been discussed like openly. So I'm just going to, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a spinoff, and I can't really say how I know, but I do know. So
it's the Force. Look, you're just in touch with the Force, and the Force tells you that it's going to happen.
This one.
Yes.
Yeah. Come on.
No, there was a Deadline article recently where Katie Sackhoff, who plays Bo-Katan, was discussing maybe the word she used was potential spinoff, but I think
it makes sense if you watch this episode. Like, this was there, unless Ahsoka's going to be a regular on Mandalorian, they just set up a huge plot line.
I kind of think that this is just the only time, like, we might see her like a little bit later on, maybe we might see more of her in season 3. But for season 2, I almost feel like this was just her one and done. If we see her again, it's going to be very minimal.
Well, so can we talk about like this, like, quest change thing? Because I don't know how to feel about it. I'm confused about how to feel.
The Thrawn quest change, you mean?
No, because Thrawn is Ahsoka's quest. That's like a new storyline, and that's why it makes sense for a spinoff. But I mean, Mando's shifted, like, his quest was to find a Jedi, and he found one, but now it feels like he's supposed to hang on to Grogu. Like, that felt like the result of this was you have to train him, but now he's just like going on a different find a Jedi. It feels like it's like a sidestep as opposed to a move forward. That's how it feels, but I don't know if I'm missing something or if you get a different view on it.
So I got that too. The impression that I kind of sensed was Ahsoka said, well, number one, I can't train him. He's too attached to you. But number two, I think she was hinting at the fact that if anyone was going to train him, it was going to be Din, which is confusing because at this point, we don't know, just to kind of go back to Ahsoka for one more second, we don't know if she even knows that Luke exists. We don't know if the legend of Luke has reached her. Presumably she does know because Ahsoka very involved with the rebellion, which he would, but we don't know that. So I'm not going to assume. My point being, I don't think Ahsoka would know to tell him, oh yes, there are other, I mean, she knows there's not a lot left, but I don't know that Ahsoka would know to tell him about, going back to the rebellion and maybe going and speaking with Luke. I just don't know if she would even be anywhere near like close enough to know what's going on there. He's been so removed, number one. But number two, when they go to Tython, I'm one, like, they set it up so that there should be a Jedi who's showing up. I almost wonder if it's going to be a callback to Rebels. Yoda himself shows up, which they had done on Rebels, where Yoda, he showed up in a couple of the temples to sort of like, train Ezra and kind of speak with Ahsoka. What do you guys think about that?
It would have to be Force Ghost Yoda.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
Because he was live Yoda before.
Yeah.
Just clarifying.
Right.
Wait.
But I would say that, look, if it's possible that she maybe doesn't know exactly what happened to Darth Vader, maybe she doesn't know about Luke, this is the time period where she might not know just yet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what she's been up to. So maybe it's just like, oh yeah, okay, so wow, the Empire fell. I'll have to find out more about that. But you would think she would know. But Yoda would make a lot of sense. But I was actually trying to think of, would it be, I don't know, would it be characters from Rebels? Is there anybody from Clone Wars that would be around? Would it be Ewan McGregor? He's dead too, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be him.
And especially with his own prequel trilogy, we know that Ewan McGregor's around, so you never know.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I could see it being Ezra, but my only thing with that is, if we get Ezra now, what are they trying to say about the Thrawn Ezra storyline? Because the last we saw in Rebels, sorry, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Rebels, Ezra basically goes into the depths of space with Thrawn, and that's why Ahsoka and Sabine are going to try and find him.
No, hold on, Rachel. You skipped over a huge part of that story. Ezra goes space whale into the depths of space with Thrawn.
Yes, that is true. And I love that they came back, because we had seen them earlier on in Rebels too. It was the perfect callback. But in any case, they are somewhere out in the depths of space. We do not know where, but that's the whole thing, is that at the end of Rebels, Ahsoka and Sabine went off to find Ezra. It was Ezra, and I'm assuming the reason that Ahsoka's looking for Thrawn is because she's assuming that maybe someone has sighted Thrawn, and she's thinking that finding him will be the key to Ezra. Number one. Number two, this is kind of a random thought, but it kind of goes along with, sighting people and tracking people. Let's not forget that Gideon has tracked Din to this planet and is tracking him. So my next guess would be that when they get to Tython, that they've got to call back that tracker, and that there's going to be somewhere there that's going to meet him, or who's following him. This would, going to a hidden Jedi ruin would probably be something that Gideon would be very interested in.
Yeah,
that's a good point. And this episode has so much stuff, and I forgot about that tracker.
Yeah, exactly. I only thought of it just because I went back and I rewatched the 2 episodes before the show that we were, tonight, and yeah.
Tying into that, Michael B talked about, he had some serious questions and theories. Who took Grogu from the temple? Great question. I don't think any of us have an answer, but 100 theories. If Mando was hired by Gideon to find him, who did Mando take him from? So basically, who had him in the first episode of season 1? I think we know who was there in the building, but who had hired them? Was it Gideon? Was it someone else? So
when you
I
say
guess
people in the building, do you mean the
scientists and
okay,
Werner Herzog?
Those were Imperial officers. That were there. But I'm more curious about that team of they presented them as gangsters in episode 1 of season 1. Did Mando just murk a bunch of friends of the Jedi? Because they were guarding Baby Yoda from the Imperials. Let's be clear about that. That group of guys was guarding a hidden Jedi from the Empire, and Mando went in there and just slaughtered everybody.
It's a great point.
What I'm curious about, bringing up this. First of all, there there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about, people being pissed because when Ahsoka said, "I've only seen one other being like this," and it was Yoda, and she forgot about Yaddle. Now, here's the thing, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because we were talking about Coruscant, so it makes me think about Yaddle, and my theory there is that when Ahsoka, she had just said about Grogu that he basically, from what she sensed with him, after he was taken from Coruscant, he then, all his memories kind of go dark. And then she said, "I've only known one other being like this." I don't think she meant, I could be wrong, but I don't think she meant species. I think she meant, "I've only known one other being who went dark the way Grogu is when I sense him." Because, in Rebels, Ahsoka did have a little bit of contact with Yoda during the dark moments where he was supposed to be, hiding and using the Force, because we know he was, but not, remaining hidden while doing it. So my thought is that potentially that is what Ahsoka meant, and that she was not trying to say that there was no Yaddle, or maybe she forgot.
I took it that there's only Yoda. That they've retconned away Dave Filoni or no, they're just like no Yaddle.
It was a surprising lore oversight. I appreciate your attempts to backflip through that, Rachel. But it was a surprising lore oversight by Filoni, who's like an encyclopedia.
Yeah, that's why I think
the only grace that I'll give him is, so when Ahsoka was born, Ahsoka would have been around 3 when Anakin went to the temple in episode 1. So around the time of Phantom Menace, she was about 3. So in theory, she was at the temple by then. I think lore backs that up. But maybe she just either didn't ever interact with Yaddle before she stepped down, because she's off the council before episode 2. Maybe she died. We don't know. But maybe, or she just doesn't have any memory of Yaddle because she was 3.
It's possible, maybe. But kind of going back to that question of who took Grogu from.
Sorry, real quick, because it's in the chat. People are like, "Who is Yaddle?"
Well, and you have people wondering if she's even canon, but
she is canon.
She's in episode 1.
Yeah, she's
absolutely canon.
There's no way.
Yaddle was another of Yoda's species who was on the Jedi Council during episode 1, but she never spoke, and we never saw her again.
And here's the thing, is that a lot of people, when we first met the child, a lot of people were saying, well, maybe Yoda and Yaddle had a child. That was what was going around. So,
and called him Yodel.
Yeah,
it was going to be
such a missed opportunity. Anyway, and I want to know, somehow the name Grogu doesn't bother me. Here's the thing, is that they gave us that we're in a season and a half before we got a name for this character. It had to be good, and Grogu somehow works for me. What about you guys, Joe?
Oh, it definitely works.
Yeah, because it feels like it feels like somehow, even though we don't know much about Yoda's species, it feels right.
I think the way that she says it's so matter of fact, and they played it off in a way where every time Din says Grogu, he looks up. He's like, "Yeah," as in why? How come you haven't been saying my name this whole time? It was just like the somehow they have comic timing behind a Mandalorian and this child. And it was so funny that because they did it 3 times. Every time he said his name. So to me, it works on that level. It's just funny that whenever he says it, he's like, what? So I think it's a good name. And it's because we've known Yoda, we've known Yaddle. If it was another Y name, I think it would have been I guess. So because it's not something we would have thought about. Here's the thing. I'm just glad it wasn't like Steve. They didn't just give him a regular dude name, or Keanu.
That would have been the most baller move if they just named that character Keanu.
Oh my god!
Like it's a cat in a Key and Peele movie.
I wonder too. I almost guarantee they knew the name before they even started this,
They said they did.
Yeah. So it had to be something good, and I think it was.
I literally sat there after they said it the first time, like in shock. I think out loud to no one in the room because it was just I was like Grogu.
See,
I literally sat there saying it, getting the sound of it, and at first it threw me off, and I wasn't sure about it. But but I thought about if they had just like presented this character to us without a year and a half of like or a year of buildup, if they were just like, this is Grogu, you'd be like, yeah, that's probably Grogu.
Sounds like Grogu to me.
Like it works. It's weird, but it works.
Grogu the egg eating. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Grogu the bundle of chaotic neutral energy.
So Zach, you said your shock moment was learning the name. For me, it was hearing one word, Thrawn.
Oh, that was a way bigger shock than Grogu. But Grogu was just like, what?
Hubby Joe.
Yeah, I agree on both. I agree on both counts. They were both surprising, but actually getting the name and not making a big deal about it. It's like, yeah, his name's Grogu. Like, give us, like trumpets or flashing lights or something, and just
well,
like, all right, I guess.
And before we talk a little bit more about Thrawn, with Grogu, I think what's interesting to me is that we kind of learned that it's not so much that he can't listen. It's just that he is basically so stubborn and won't actually listen to anything he's being told to do, which makes me wonder, he's 50 years old at this point. When is it just that he's been so stunted by the fact that he had to go dark and, really just be in hiding? Should Grogu actually be able to talk by this point? But he's just been through so much. It made me wonder, like, what we would have gotten if, Grogu if he didn't have to go into hiding for years of his life.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I was gonna say it's an interesting move. Like, look, they said the species develop at different paces thing. It could be that I'm just gonna call them Yodas. Yodas don't speak until they're older. They could also go the route of he went through a major trauma and is now effectively mute.
Yeah.
Because of it. Like to me, that would be an interesting way to go. Like he should be able to talk, but it's more about his experience has made him nonverbal.
Yeah. And then just also think about like when we first meet Yoda as an audience in Empire Strikes Back, how stubborn and, what he's 850 or whatever he is at that point, and honestly, he's a dick. And he's been on his own for a while, and he's trying to play Luke a little bit, but at the same time, I mean, we now know how long he's been there by himself, and I think that these are probably very stubborn creatures. I think that that's probably going to be something consistently that we see, but they're always adorable. So you can't take that away from them.
Now this is a stupid joke question. When Ahsoka says that she can communicate with him, like sort of, is that because he's talking backwards and it's really hard to mentally wrap your mind around that backwards talk?
Oh my god, that's hilarious. That is a good question though, because you don't know who was training him. If he spent time with, we don't know if there was another Yaddle or like other creatures there who had the same cadence their talk, but if he spent time just like with people who talked the way we do, then especially being around Din, if this is someone that he's very attached to, I don't see, like on a serious note, even though it was a joke question, serious answer is I don't see Grogu talking the way that Yoda did. I see him talking more like imitating Din actually, which would be very funny.
It would be really weird to see a Yoda talking forward. Like it would be uncomfortable.
Yes. Very, very different, but yeah. Okay. I think for the last part of this conversation, let's just talk a little bit more about Thrawn. Just, maybe speculations in terms of, well, I don't know. Maybe if there is something else to say about him, I mean, I'm sure we could talk about him. I just really want to add that it's what I want to know is what Thrawn's involvement is with the magistrate. We got her backstory too. She is not a character we've seen before, but she is played by Diana Lee Inosanto, who is a martial artist, and her father was Bruce Lee's student and training partner. So the actress is very well known, and she really played a powerful part. And the fact that this is someone connected to Thrawn, I'm very curious where they go with this.
Yeah. It's interesting because when look, there's a thing. It's like whenever you have like sort of these characters that exist outside of film trilogy movies, and then they conveniently disappear. Ahsoka's a perfect example. And they're like, well, they're not in any of those. Oh, but then now they're back. Now that we can tell these stories, it's always like, I just wish that you had something, you had sort of a linear involvement with some of these characters. It's just not the way it works. But I mean, there's so much to think about. It's like, okay, so he was gone for, episodes 4, 5, and 6. Where was he? What was he doing? And how is he still in some role of authority? It asks so many questions. And I actually don't care what any of the answers are. I just want to see him. I'm interested. I'm fascinated. I'd love to. We could talk for hours about what they might be, but there's no answer that's going to be so stupid where I'm going to be like, no, I don't want to see Thrawn. So it'll be fine.
Well, that's my only, like, it's cool. Like, as a Star Wars fan, like all of Star Wars fan, like, that's awesome. As a Mandalorian fan, it's like a little like, well, you threw this nugget at us and I don't think you're going to pay it off here. It's a little too, it's like Avengers Age of Ultron. Which, like, I like that movie. That's a good movie, but one of its failings is that it's doing so much work to set up future things that it forgets to just be good in its own right. And I'm not putting blame on anyone particular. That production had its own, like, behind the scenes mess around.
No, I mean, and honestly, that's a really tough thing. Like,
it doesn't feel like we're gonna bring Ahsoka back. It doesn't feel like we're gonna bring Thrawn back. So I'm just excited to see where Din goes with Grogu.
It's a really tough thing to do. Like, obviously, Empire Strikes Back does it really well, but it really is setting up the next movie.
Well, they're setting up the next movie, and then they're setting up a spin-off.
Yeah, and I always use the example of the movie that I don't like, that I don't think did it well, was Back to the Future Part 2. They were so preoccupied with setting everything else up. I'm like, could you just tell this story? Like, great, I get it. And what you can't call him chicken? Where was that in the first movie? But anyway,
I agree with that. That came out. Well, why he never cared about that in the first one. I agree with that.
But it's very hard to do. And you're right, Zach. I hope that maybe it's not when this season ends. Maybe season 3 ends. You're like, okay, yeah, they did pay it off. I don't think it's going to get paid off in these next few weeks. But I think, look, if Din is able to say he kills Moff Gideon, I think by mentioning Thrawn, then it's like, okay, yeah, great. All you did is get rid of that guy. It's like Hydra. There's still many other heads to poke their way out.
Now sorry, Rachel, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the thing is that in Rebels, Thrawn was really, they had a lot of different bads, but Thrawn ended up overshadowing all of them. One, just as a character, and I will say this, so Timothy Zahn, who has written Thrawn, even back in the books that are now considered legends, and now he's got canon Thrawn books as well, and they are all amazing. But the way that Thrawn is written as a character, he is just so calculating and so calm. And they could really do an amazing job if they cast the right person, the way they did in Rebels to voice him. But they could also mess it up very easily. But the thing is that I would love to see a live action Thrawn. He could be the big bad of Mandalorian, but I'm with Zach. I don't think that they're going to use him or Ahsoka as a central focus of this story. I think that they're going off in another direction. Because I just feel like here's where I am wondering what's going to happen in Mandalorian, because if they don't handle this the right way, it could sink. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think we're all at a point where, okay, we've been introduced to Grogu and a little bit of his backstory. I think now, from what I'm reading and how I'm personally feeling, I'd like to see this kind of move forward a little more quickly than what we have sometimes gotten in Mandalorian, where we actually get to Tython and, okay, fine, like we get some of the action from Gideon and we kind of find out more about what he's doing. But also, if it really is going to be Din trying to find out how to train Grogu, then I think that we need to get to that sooner rather than later, and just give us a little more information in the next, episodes that we get before the end of season 2. Even if they're going to leave us hanging, we need a little bit to kind of know, okay, well, so what should we expect for season 3 then? Is it more Gideon, or are we getting rid of him? And is Thrawn coming in? Which is what I don't see that happening right now. I see, I see that being separate.
What could be interesting is if the goal is to get to season 3, which is already picked up, and the story there is the retaking of Mandalore. So then you're joining Ahsoka and Bo-Katan for season 3, and maybe, like, we know that the Empire splinters into factions post New Republic era, in the New Republic era, whatever it is. I wonder if you get, like, if it's Moff Gideon versus Thrawn, who at this point, because he was the only. Was anyone else known as a Grand Moff besides him, or was it just Thrawn?
Just Tarkin.
Tarkin was Grand Moff.
And then
He was Grand Moff Tarkin, yeah, and
okay.
there were not. Yeah, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and unless I'm mistaken, Gideon is just Moff, right? Or is he Grand Moff? I think he's just Moff Gideon. Yeah. So Grand Moff Tarkin was probably higher, at the top of the I don't know, the food pyramid, top of the hierarchy. It is interesting because you're sort of making me think that they have to be so careful for how they do all of this, for what they set out, and I'm sure they, that Filoni and Favreau have it all mapped out, because this is the first time, I would say, in 37 years that something in Star Wars has been universally beloved. Yes, you're going to have people who are like, the Mandalorian haters are such a small segment. But from after Return of the Jedi onward, and I know in retrospect, people like to talk about Return of the Jedi in a way that it somehow is less great than it actually was. But when that movie came out, everybody loved it. That's the point I'm making.
And here's the thing, is that I think for Mandalorian, the reason why it works so well is because they've based it yet again off of movies that influenced George Lucas, number one. Yeah. Number two, they have created their own characters. Yes, we have people like Ahsoka coming in, but I feel like if you're going to touch the Skywalkers, then people are going to start hating very easily. It's a lot touchier and more sensitive to work with the Skywalker family than creating a Mandalorian who didn't exist in the OT or prequel trilogies. I think that this was going to be easier for them, number one, but number two, it also feels more like they have been inspired by the same elements that first inspired the OT. So I think creating their own Mandalorian and having this not be the Boba Fett show, I think also goes a long way, because if this character were Boba Fett and all of these same things happened, I don't think people would be happy, So it's like, it's great we got this new character. Which also, where's Boba Fett? Yeah. Great point.
We set him up like 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Where is he? Now here's the other question. I mean, we pretty much 99% know that it's going to be Boba Fett. What if it's Rex? That would really throw us off. because we saw Rex in Rebels, so they could bring him back too. He's alive.
Didn't he establish him like alive and well on like on the moon of Endor?
I think they did. Yeah, let me look into that. But
like, I think that was canonized as like they like retconned somebody in Return of the Jedi to be Rex.
Oh yeah, no, I think we talked about that. Yeah,
it definitely looks like him, and now it's I think that we can safely say Rex is still around. Whether he's going to show up or not, who knows? But technically, it could be Rex, but it's probably not. But probably both.
By putting him in the episode with the Boba Fett armor, I think that we were basically kind of spoon fed that a little bit. But now you've got me thinking that, but what if that was just the ultimate fake out?
Yeah, exactly. Now, one more cameo I want to mention is Morai, the owl from Rebels. Morai made an appearance in this episode, but if you blinked, you missed it. It was during the beginning when Ahsoka was fighting the gunmen of the magistrate. And, just from everything I was looking at too, and when I did a little bit of research on this episode, one thing that people have kind of noted is that most of the people were wearing gas masks. And, this is not just like Tusken Raiders. This was, a lot of people have a theory that basically the magistrate, when she arrived, she ruined this planet. And that Corvus had once been more lush, and that basically the Empire had kind of milked it and run it dry. So, but the original point, though, is that we saw Morai the Owl, which is a callback to the daughter. And if you guys have seen the Clone Wars, the series, there is a Mortis arc where we kind of dive more into that. It is one of my favorite arcs on Clone Wars. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's like season 3, episode 15, 16, and 17, I believe. I've watched it a few times, maybe 10. Anyway, so I think that's all I have. Do you guys have any other like last minute thoughts you wanted to add before we start to wrap up?
Well, can we didn't answer one of Michael B's questions, or even like, we don't have we're not going to have an answer, but like, I'm curious your thoughts on like, who was the one who like shepherded Grogu out of the temple, or is it somebody we don't know?
Yeah, I think it's really hard because how long was he being held where Mando basically liberates him from? So when was he taken from the temple? Is it at the rise of the Empire? So was it, say, like during the events of Revenge of the Sith? Is that when
what they basically said is like they got him out like either during or just before Order 66.
Yeah. So can it be Mace Windu? Because I want it to be. Because I want the flashback. I want that story. And because in the chat, we were talking about how much we want to see Sam Jackson, even if it's Force Ghost Sam Jackson, we have no problem with that. We just want to see him. And of course, how do you know it's Sam Jackson? His is the lightsaber that says bad motherfucker. That's how you know it's Sam Jackson.
Exactly. You don't even have to show his face. All you have to do is show a purple lightsaber.
Yeah, the purple lightsaber.
Yeah. They cannot give a purple lightsaber to anyone else. It was in his contract.
I love that.
That's hilarious. And I even beyond that too, I know that he basically said he wouldn't do it unless the lightsaber was purple.
Yeah.
So it was just, that you can do that, and that could be your like term to be part of Star Wars, and not George Lucas, not agreeing to his terms, but him agreeing to yours. That's that's a way to be.
That's the power that is Samuel L. Jackson.
But personally, I think I would love for this to be a character that we already know, and that it kind of, I obviously don't think it was Ahsoka we know it wasn't Ahsoka. If Grogu was taken during Operation 66, we know, like we know from Clone Wars, the final season, where all the major players were at that time, and plus from Revenge of the Sith. But if Grogu was taken before Order 66, which could have been the case, maybe if someone, kind of felt that something was off, and, it was another character, Oh, Zach, you have a thought.
What if Yoda took him and hit him on Kashyyyk with all the Wookiees?
Wow, I like that.
That's where Yoda was at the when Order 66 went down. What if that's why he was on Kashyyyk, was to hide Grogu?
That would be amazing.
Although Kashyyyk falls to the Empire like real fast.
Yeah, but just think about how many life days he would have been able to celebrate on Kashyyyk. I mean, at least 40. So,
oh my God, did you guys watch the holiday special?
The Lego special, yeah. You know what? I think we forgot to talk about it because this show's been too exciting for us to talk about.
We need to make the Lego holiday special canon so that we can use the time crystal, or they can use the time crystal, and just start, messing all kinds of stuff up. But no, I really, I loved the Lego holiday special. I'm a fan.
If you're a Star Wars nerd and if you've seen all the movies, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah.
Go watch the Lego holiday special. They even make so many good references to the original holiday special.
They do. It's like fun. It's so meta. Like, it's just very
in so many ways, and they had like so many of the voice actors from Clone Wars and
and the sequel trilogy. They had they had for people who, for example, the actress who plays Rose.
Yeah, exactly.
She was the voice.
So that was fun. And if you're watching this show that we're doing right now, I assume you have Disney Plus, because then you're watching Mandalorian. That's all you need to do to watch the Lego holiday special.
45 minutes. Just treat yourself.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. All right. Well, that about wraps up our show for today. Christian, where can everyone find you?
Well, you can find me, like it says right there, on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching this on the Blattcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. That's where you'll find this show. We also do a show for Star Trek Discovery. We talk about Marvel. We also talk politics most weeks. And there's the titular Blattcast, BLADTCAST. So you can find all that right here. So go ahead, subscribe. And I don't know. It's all free. How about that? So you don't have to pay for any of the stuff that I just said. And I'm not smart enough to figure out how to have commercials. So you don't even have to watch commercials. So
all right. Well, and Zach, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @ThatZachWilson, and also just find me wandering the streets saying Grogu out loud for
Are you carrying your, actual Grogu with you while you do it?
No, but I am wearing an Ahsoka Tano mask while saying it, so it's just got all kinds of layers to it.
All right. Well, everyone who, wants to find Zach, just go out into the street. You may find him. Where can everyone find you, Joe?
You find me anywhere they find Rachel, or you can follow me on my page at Rachel's Hubby Joe.
Awesome. And you can find me pretty much, you can find me on Instagram at Rachel Radner Author. You can find me on Twitter at either at Rachel Radner or at Rach Goodman. I'm kind of on both. Or you can find me on Amazon at under the name Rachel Radner, where I publish all of my books. So if you have an interest in, as of right now, it's all romance. One day I'm going to have another pen name where I publish more sci-fi fantasy, but for now, Rachel Radner is the romance. I also do a show with Joe and Jacob Marquez. We host a show called Restless Rap over on Facebook, where we cover the young and the restless. All right.
Wait. I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Rachel.
Oh, happy birthday, Rachel.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, cool. Have a great week, everyone. We will be back next Friday at 9 p.m. Is that right, Christian? Okay.
Yeah, it was really because of Thanksgiving that I just knew I wasn't going to be able to watch it, and also would not have been able to do the show last night. So, but next Friday we'll be back for sure.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we'll see you all next Friday at 9 p.m. Bye, everyone.